Ooh. And it's interesting about the codes and specs that Casey was talking about. And I completely agree. I mean, I see everything I've been reading and listening to. Neocon was really, since everything got moved and canceled or rearranged, Neocon is the big interior design architecture international conference. Okay, if that worked.
I'm definitely interested to see how things go from here. Fascinating learning experience. And it stinks too, because those things probably won't start rolling out and about until a year from now, 2 years from now. And by then, I'll be out of class.
Well, but you'll always take CEU meetings, and that's the nice thing about conferences. That is the nice thing about conferences, that you can always get continued information and grow with it that way. Okay. So, let's see. This was what I was hoping to accomplish in BIM this morning, so that I could have shown you my screen as well as I'm sharing the screen with Rebecca.
Yeah.
I think, let me just jump over to the Blackboard. Ding, ding, ding. Well, that one went well. So you had Amaya and Hannah, 2 new people. And then Lindsay, Rebecca, and Devin, that makes 5. And then Amaya.
Yeah, I could recognize, the top half of her face, but I was like, I don't know your name, and I don't want to sing rude and be like, what's your name again?
Yeah, there she is. Okay, so I'm on to share my screen. Let's see here. There we go. And this is what I wanted to do this morning in BIM. But here we are. Do you see my screen okay, Rebecca?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go to my weekly announcement and to our link. So we have a folder here for week 2 for codes and specs. So the introduction to this chapter is about accessibility. A lot of this course may seem dry to you, but this is exactly what Casey was just talking about. Why, this may come down to work opportunities, employment opportunities in the future, that stuff you could do at home, because you could definitely review drawings and assist with any kind of compliance issues. You can work for government bodies as a code compliant person to make sure that new construction projects are meeting code, that they are compliant with the rules that are in place in the laws. So this chapter introduces you to that. I don't know if you had a chance to get the book yet. Chapter 1 reminded us of all the varieties of codes we have out there in the world, and then all the organizations that we work with. The book is from Wiley Publishers. Did you get the book?
I did get the book, yes.
And did you get the book yet? Awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
digital,
That's cool. That's cool. Actually, I have a digital copy as well. So that's our book. And it, like I said, it's pretty dry, but the nice thing is you could use it as a reference any point in time. But they do remind us in our reading that, you know, these do change because life changes. And what we just went through a pandemic, and what we were talking about, in all likelihood, building codes, life safety codes, plumbing, mechanical and electrical, and all that, even residential, you know, the quality of the air, the quality of your materials, a lot of that might get upgraded and updated. So we'll want to keep an eye on that. So let me jump back to week 2. The nice thing is too that, I wonder if I can, there we go. This has a little PDF. Did you guys get to review your PDF in chapter 1? Okay. So this was chapter 2's, and the International Building Code, the IBC, is one that we are referred to many, many times. And you'll hear people say, is this an, if you look at regulations, is this an ADA standard? The Architectural Barriers Act, is this a working within the fair housing guidelines? You'll hear people talk about that. Now, I know you've heard this one. Is this ADA accessible, right? You've heard them talk about that. Okay. So ICC is one of the first ones that happened. ANISI, that's what you see on specs many times. That's that rule that, like with fabrics, if it meets that compliance because of fire, if it's the type of fabric that will not burn as quickly or doesn't have fumes when it's on fire, where the people who are in the building, are they more likely to be hurt by it? So you have those in place. Alrighty, so this goes over basically all this, those main guidelines and what did the acts, federal acts that went into place. Here's the type of a public accommodation that we think about. Obviously, if you look at all of these involve public places where people are involved, but you can see on the right the exemptions. So a facility that is owned and operated for religious reasons, a private club, and obviously your home, the residential. So that's something to remember. And then with ADA, it turned, I want to say 30 this year, if I remember correctly. It was a 1990 piece. It got official in 91. So they're giving it its 30th birthday, and it's over the hill now. But obviously we hit our standards, and the few, you know, people were really, they kind of pick the rules out of the sky sometimes that they're just not familiar with. So if it really came down to, is this compliant and do I have to change? That's where you have to get those experts in who know the law. And typically what happens is, like, I think right now, the 2010 standards, see there, they went into effect in 2012. So there are legal advisors and consultants out there to make sure that everything is staying compliant. And that's, again, that's something, that's a job you could do if you wanted to explore that type of work. Because if someone, say, if this building, oh, well, a good example, when Turley Center, you know, that used to be one of the original buildings, but it had a beautiful wood floor and a stage and it was a ballroom. Okay, so they're going to renovate it. I think the only thing that stayed was part of that wood floor and a few of the structural walls. They did a complete renovation. Well, then what does that mean? Well, that means you have to upgrade, which you hear that word often, to the current regulations and standards. You have to comply. So if you notice, doors started having buttons on them, like activating buttons for the doors to open up. Hallways were made the right width. Bathrooms included ADA stalls and ADA sinks, and the handles on the doors were compliant. So that's where this comes into play. and things you want to think about. Let's see, really that was the whole thing for that chapter. Let me close that. There we go. This was an addendum I had on accessibility, if you wanted to go over that. It was, for designing for it has been unique when it comes to commercial, because we kind of have in place clearances that we have to do space planning by, right? So always, I used to keep on my desk a little cheat sheet, and you would want one that's current because mine would be from the 1990s, but you know, you'd want a current one. Okay, so is 42 inches the right aisle width for wheelchair accessibility for a single aisle, right? It used to be 36, but now wheelchairs are actually a little bit larger, you know, and so they discovered that, you know what, you actually need 42 inches. And what do you need, like with shelving, what's too high, what's too low? You know, you have all those types of rule, you know, space plan standards that you want to draw within to keep it ready to spec and get constructed. Because you'll have to take your drawings through a vetting cycle of code and compliance standards. Does that make sense? So one person you might meet with, you will meet with, would be the fire marshal. So the fire marshal is given a set of drawings from your project, if it's commercial, and he or she will go over it to make sure that it meets all of the fire egress standards and rules in place. And if not, they take a red marker to it, or you have a meeting and you are shown where you need to make adjustments to become compliant. And so that's one of them. Another one, while ADA has some rules of the law in place, typically it's not enforced as much as we would like it to be. And that's unfortunate, because technically you want all buildings that are public to be accessible, but even the most current ones, you know, sometimes you have to go all the way over to a different parking lot to access the elevator to get to the other level that allows you to have a straight entrance into the building that has an elevator nearby where you're going. And even then, if you can get into the room or not with the door. So it's all kinds of user-friendly positions you have to place yourself in when you're space planning ahead of time before it goes through that vetting process to see if it's compliant with everything. So I'm going to stop there for a second. So what would you do? Well, each of you think about this and each of you answer then. So you are getting your first commercial project. Let's say it's a dentist office building, and you have some dental exam rooms, you have a lobby. So what would you do? You have a bathroom, maybe only one bathroom based on the occupancy of the building. And what are some of the things you would have to think about? What would you address as the interior designer planning the space plan and the travel path for the people who are occupying that building?
Yeah, you'd have to make sure that there's a ramp to the doorway, there's a proper fire escape. The lobby would have to be a certain size. There would have to be a place where they can actually put their wheelchair, like to sit. Always would have to be right size, doorways have to be right size. The place where you actually get up and get your teeth don't have to be the way you have to be able to go on that.
That's true. That's true. Would you even have a room without a dental chair and work with the wheelchair?
Well, how could you though?
I don't know.
It sits upright.
I don't know. That's true. Rebecca?
Well, I actually know my dentist office. They have like if you're kind of like paralyzed seat, and so you put you're in your wheelchair and they push you up to it, and it's like a machine that like lifts you into like the dental seat. And then like whenever you're finished, it takes you back into like your wheelchair. And it's really interesting to see. I've seen them do it like maybe like twice, and I was fascinated by it because I never knew like something like that existed. Um, and they also have, yeah, they also have where like if you need to like rinse your hands or like use the restroom or something, if like the commode or something's too high for you, it'll like help your wheelchair. Like it's got like little grooves that you can like set your wheelchair into so that it won't roll even if your wheels are locked and like there's like water on the floor or something. It's kind of like rails for like the wheels on your wheelchair.
Huh.
It's really fascinating.
Like those little guides you use when you take your car through the car wash.
Yes.
Got you. Okay. Oh, I never thought about that. So those are things because of that you guys could suggest even for new construction. This little document I had, I'm trying to remember where I got it from. Oh, it's from the book. It's the examples that they give. So this was some reminders about some definitions for you. This is about the clearance. Do you guys remember what's your diameter for a wheelchair to turn around in? Remember what the diameter of a circle is? Do you remember not the radius, but the diameter? What do you think it is, Rebecca?
I'm trying.
See this? If we make it a circle and not a elliptical, but if it was a circle, what would it be from this point to that point?
360? Is that what you're saying? Like,
The diameter. If I measured from this point all the way over here to this point. I wish I had electronic pointers. It should happen.
Is it 5 feet?
Yes, very good. It is. It's 60 inches. Yes. Yes, very good. Now, this is, they talk about accessible routes at some of your definitions. This has to do with your fire egress, fire escape. What do you notice in this picture right here? Is there something that you notice in the graphic, the little figure that they've provided for us?
Just the symbol.
Exactly, the symbol. Good job. That's what I wanted you to say.
Okay.
That's it. That's the right answer.
No.
So with being able to leave a building or to get somewhere, we address that as wayfinding. Do you remember talking about that in contract design? Okay. With codes and compliance, it takes it to another level of safety where it's a rule where you have to absolutely have to have certain kind of signage. One of those being the little wheelchair symbol, right, for ADA. What would another sign be that is has to be in a building? It's a word lit up in red.
exit.
There.
Exit.
Okay, very good. So you each got a right answer. Very good. See, simple. So yes, you look for that exit sign, right? Because that lets you know this is how you can get out of the building safely. That's the big one. So those accessible routes, the accessible route part is for ADA, but then also exiting the building for fire escape, the same thing too. Now here they talk about being able to reach things, how you can provide for people in their homes. The big one for this is typically kitchen and bath design. It affects it. Also affects your switches, your light switches, where you place them. I think it's now 42 inches on center. And a long time ago, they were a little bit higher. But now from the floor. Remember AFF, at finished floor? Okay, so now I'm pretty sure the rule is things have to be 42 inches off the floor for wheelchair. Okay. That's more accessibility routes. So you're seeing the signage is very important for accessibility. Parking, that's kind of, we wouldn't be really having to do that. Occupancy, so sometimes I will say, when I spec'd the furniture that we have now, I spec'd it back in 2013. I actually got 2 of my tables has levers on them so that you can raise them if you had to. So, or lower them. So if I had a student in a wheelchair, they would have that table available to them to adjust. So it's an adjustable table that they could roll into and work like the rest of us. It's accessible for everyone. In restaurants, what is recommended?
Like the tables, how they have like the wheelchair side that you can just pull your wheelchair up to.
Very good, right. And so it's not a 4-legged table typically, it's a column, right?
Right.
Right,
I know
yeah,
you're talking about that one.
exactly. So when you spec tables, typically for public accessibility and thinking of ADA, you want that column support versus perpendicular right angle corner leg supports. So the column allows you to pull up to it and pull back from it. Here they're showing you like theater seating, and either the seats themselves would be accessible. They're showing like where you can plug in devices for the hearing impaired. Again, adding the equivalent space you need in the front for accessibility of the aisles. So those are the types of things you'd want to consider. There's a good example right there for you of things that you want to make provisions for when you space plan for areas. And if it's new construction, what's the ADA requirements? That's where you go back to those guidelines that they give you. And yeah, so those are the things you'd want to apply to that. Oh, there's our dining room tables. I jumped ahead. Oh goodness, nothing new, huh? Okay. So yeah, this covers like, for this would be like hotels, parks and rec, dormitories, right? If you're doing large apartment dwellings and you want to have some ADA apartments down on the ground floor, right? You have that. Oh, well, there you go. Yep, that. It's all coming back to me. Oh my goodness. Okay, so it's a pretty cool little addendum from the book there for you. This should be the link. Yeah, there's the link. So this is a little cheat sheet that's out there, and it can gives you the links to additional information there to the 2010 ADA standards. There's that one. This might be the page. Nope. Okay. And you do have a discussion board for this week. If you could add one more compliance in the ADA code for designers to adhere to when space planning and specifying an interior public space, what would that be? So think about that. And then I gave an example for myself. I said, I personally would like to see a greater width in the aisle for minimum public access, increasing the 44-inch single path to actually 60-inch single path. And one big thing that I can take away from this is this pandemic. Has it gotten a little bit nicer going to Kroger's and less like, you know, crowded when we're all supposed to be going in this one direction, you know? And we're kind of, that while social distancing is hard emotionally, when you're out in public spaces, it kind of makes it a little bit more nicer for you, you know? That's kind of taught us that. Okay.
Even with the 60 inches, and give them room to be able to turn around too.
Yes, yeah, exactly, exactly. There also is a small quiz. I think it's maybe 6 or 7 questions. It's not very big, but this is on chapter 1. Chapter 1, okay? And that's it for this week. I'm just getting your interest, piquing your interest right now. What we will have next week will be a little bit more combined work. So you might even want to jump ahead a little bit. So last year I had us do an activity here on campus to check accessibility. We went over to the education building to see what updates it may require and how accessible it is. I thought I provided the drawing for it. Maybe not. Oh, I did. I did provide a drawing. Well, okay, hold on a second. I did not provide a drawing. I did provide a drawing. It's coming through. Okay. 100, oh, it has 89 pages. That's the checklist. Okay. There you go. Actually, let me, that's the checklist. Let me remember to do this, but hopefully I will. I have a drawing of the education building. It wasn't really hard what I had everyone look at last year, but it was entering the first floor where the lobby is, and then getting to the bathrooms, and if the bathrooms were compliant, and then exiting the building. If I was in a wheelchair, or if I was blind, how easy or how hard would it be for me to get into the education building down at the bottom level, and if I needed to use the restroom? How hard would that be for me? So that's what I had us kind of walk through in the class. So, so 2019 was last year. I need to change that. That's not right. But yeah, we don't want that.
That's just a little late.
We'll just leave it doing class for right now. And here we go. And there's a small discussion board with that. So this week, what I'd like for you to do is think about what you would change to the ADA thing. And was it really interesting? You can bring in your answers. You can even talk about the pandemic, because you are a whole new generation of people now living through this pandemic and how it will affect how you perceive space and people and the user friendliness of areas. I mean, as designers, I'm sure that has affected how you think about things. Air quality, if it's safe to be somewhere. I mean, you know what's bothered me as a person? You know, we were talking about our mask and stuff. I have mine here in case someone walks by. But elevators scare the bejeebies out of me.
Yep.
I thought, in my head, I thought they need a sign at every elevator, one person at a time.
I was waiting on the elevator this morning to come upstairs, and a fellow joined me, and then we ended up going up the elevator together, but I didn't want to be rude. But also I was like against the wall on the other side, because I was like, no.
You know, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Now, okay, so I have a question about retail, Rebecca. So you're there in retail, so do you have space between you and the customers? What are you doing?
So we're technically not, like, we're in the Green Bar, but we're not owned by the Green Bar. So like the Green Bar has their set where the retailers have to wear gloves, face mask, and they're only allowing a few people in their store at a time. And they all have to use hand sanitizer, like coming in and leaving. Our store, you just have to use hand sanitizer, and we only allow like 10 people in at a time. It is kind of like it's a little bit bigger than what it looks like, what it was used to be. So we only allow 10 people in, and we try to stay kind of like at the desk or at the doors. And we don't have to wear gloves, we just have to wear a mask. And we try to like let people know that you're not allowed to touch everything. But like we have a set, like we have like clothing, like they have like the leggings and the like the robes and everything, and we only have what's on display out. So like you can touch and put on like the display items, but we get everything from the back. So
Wow.
we're trying to keep it a little bit like cleaner. And then every evening or every morning before opening, we have like a steamer, and we just run it across like everything that's like hand level that people like want to touch or like feel or something. And we just try to keep it as clean as we can, really.
Wow. Wow.
I bet that's something else that'll change too, is building occupancy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to that here in week 4, I think. Not next week, but the following. I'll show you how to figure out occupancy load for a building. And there's a formula for it. But you're right, in all likelihood, that may change in the near future. But
Yeah, it's already changing, like at the Greenbrier. Do you remember where like the little cafe is in the retail corridor where you can get like coffee to go and like little breakfast snacks?
yes, do you remember that?
So,
Yeah.
so it's actually gotten so overwhelming for them because there's so many people like within like the Greenbrier and everybody goes there like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. They're actually taking the shop next to it and tearing it down and expanding the little cafe into the shop next door so that they can have enough space for people to actually come in and get a coffee and like a snack or something without having to wait in line for like 4 hours, because that's how long people have been waiting in line for.
4 hours?
Yes.
Do you have
Yes.
a mobile app where you can order ahead and pay for it and just pick it up?
Nope.
Starbucks does.
Yes. No, the shop, it's actually like if you don't get there between like 6 o'clock and 7, you won't get your like drink or food until like 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. And at that point, it's like, do you even want it? Because you've been waiting in line for so long. The line will literally back up all the way outside of the building of the north entrance.
And I don't think people are 6 feet apart either. Huh?
No, no.
Wowee. Goodness gracious. You're right, guys. I mean, you are going to be a very interesting generation of people in design, architecture and design. And it's going to be, you'll have this whole experience now to associate with your ideas and your creativity and looking at codes and compliance and how you would want to spec for things. I know air quality is real important now, and that exchange rate. And I've always been a huge fan of the Mitsubishi heating and cooling wall mounted systems, but they may become extremely popular because they're independently vented, and a lot of them come with that HIPAA filter. So you have a cleaning system already in place with those. My husband's like, they're a big eyesore on the wall. I was like, but you know what? Places are accommodating for them, and they're getting better at making them more streamlined for visual installations in the interiors where they're kind of not so obvious. In the past, they were like 54 inches wide and 24 inches tall, big bulky things that were installed, and like white. So now you can get black. You could probably get any kind of finish, I imagine, on it. But I'm a big believer in those. I really am. So I have a feeling that might become more addressed in the future as well. So do you guys have any questions about the class, about codes and design?
I'll think of something later, but not now.
Rebecca, what about you?
I mean, not at the moment. I've been like, I remember like whenever I first did like last week's like discussion and everything, I was kind of like starting to have questions, and now they're just kind of like fading into like the back of my memory, but I'm sure they'll come back.
Very good. Okay. Well, let me, I'll do that. Let's go to the, okay. So, storage. What did you get from that?
I just thought it was really neat that there's a whole thing about how you can store things for ADA compliance, and like how the shelves need to be, and how closets are built, and that kind of thing. So that's something I've never thought about, is how to make a closet area for someone to be ADA compliant. And it even goes into discussion about storage units, like storage facilities, how they have to make certain places in their facilities ADA compliant, so that people that are storing their stuff can access it easily.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, I hadn't either.
Yeah.
Huh. That's true.
Yeah, it's right there at the end. In a facility of 1 to 200 units, 5% of all the units need to be compliant minimum, but no less than 1 unit in the building. And if you go over 200, then you have to have 10 of them plus 2% of the total number of units over. So you have to have the way I read it and understood it was you have to have a bare minimum of 10 units plus an extra 2% of all of the units over 200.
That would make sense. And it goes beyond just someone in a wheelchair. You know, if an elderly person wanted to still access their items that they had stored, the same rules apply, like the same guidelines that you're using for someone in a wheelchair actually helps the person who might be elderly. I know the big thing I used to pay attention to was your pulls. Is the pull easy for the person to touch, and just, you know, and then the hardware that's used for the drawer to come out. Do you have to really pull on it, or is it something I can just take the pull and it glides right out and then you can secure it right back in? And another thing is with that type of storage is you should only have 2 drawers, and everything above that should be shelving. And not only that, it should be secured into the wall and anchored into the wall, not just with the studs, but it should really be anchored into the wall. And you need to do the formulas with how much weight can be on the shelving, because you wouldn't want it to topple over on someone.
Yeah.
So, and then it can only go up so high. Even for average people who can reach it, because of fire codes, you're technically supposed to have 18 inches from the ceiling to the top of your tallest item in the room. And typically they go by where your sprayers are, the sprinkler heads. You have to be a certain amount of inches from that sprinkler head to your tallest item in a space.
Does that also include built-ins, like floor-to-ceiling cabinetry?
It does not. It's a very good question, because you know why it doesn't include that?
Why?
Because you've enclosed the top of it.
Really?
Yes.
That's the difference.
So because what you're doing is you're covering up that space that would have to be covered by the sprinkler head. So what it does, it measures the volume of what the sprinkler head has to do to address that concern. So if it's a fire or something that sprinkler head has to spray its chemical on to change it, then it only takes in that amount of volume in that open space. And since you're closing off that space with that built-in cabinetry, then yeah.
That's neat.
But you also have to take in consideration the built-in cabinetry, because you've added more materials into the room that could be, that are not flame retardant, and that could cause a greater fire that the sprinkler head would have to control. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, it's a lot of stuff to think about, you know? When I was your age, I did a little bank room, and that's when they were bringing it to my attention. And I'll always remember that all my life, that they needed a lot of filing back then, because we didn't have digital or electronic storage.
Yeah.
So the fire people were like, just make sure you have this much space from the ceiling to the sprinkler head to the top of your lateral files, because some people will be like loaded, you know, because we'll have to get to them. You know, you used to have the little step stools on wheels, remember, that you'd pull along and climb up to. And so yeah, you could, you couldn't exceed above that amount. Well, very good. Okay, let me see here. Oh, Blackboard. Decks and proper coding for decks, huh?
Yes. So actually, my family, we own a farm, and here recently we have been hiring in like local people to like come pick like vegetables and fruits for us. So it's kind of like helping out our community in a way. And one of our decks had actually like had a tree fall on top of it due to like a thunderstorm, and lightning struck it. So we had to completely rebuild our deck. And Dad, he's like in construction and everything, so he actually knew how to like do like the proper coding for it. But whenever I was asking him about it, like I had no idea, like there was like actually like so many like specific details that went into it. And like since we're having like technically we're employers now of people, it has to be like people have to come out and actually like check it and make sure it's like to the proper like codes and specs and everything. And I was like so amazed. Like I stood up there and like watched this man like learn how, like he was like teaching me how to do it.
You measured the space between the railings, right? And then he made,
Yes.
and then
Yep.
he put the amount left over on the handrail. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. It was crazy. Like it was like a 2-day process of him like building it, and then they had people come out to like check it. And like the whole time I was like out there like supervising, like, wait, why do I have to do this? And what's this? And I was like taking notes, and dad was like telling him, he was like, she's tried to be a designer and she just goes nuts over this stuff.
We should videotape it. That would have been cool.
It would have been, yeah. I didn't even think about that. I was just so into it.
And say, here's code compliance for decks. Long, what you need to know.
Hey, I would be surprised if it didn't take off.
I know. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't watch TikTok, but he likes it for woodworking, that type of thing. Someone would,
Mhm.
little idea, like stringing, putting a string on your banjo. There's little TikTok things out there for that. Canning vegetables and fruit, little segments to do it really fast for you. But yeah, I leave that alone. There's the one thing I don't need to be on there at all. So, well, I like the deck, the railing is that's a very good thing you bring up there, because that also applies to all kinds of public spaces, hospitals, schools, stairwells, right? You have to have a certain height.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And since we're considered now like an employer, we actually had to have like the little like strips so that they're like slip resistant. So we had to put those on the stairs, and like every other board had to be like coated with like a grip that like it's like water resistant kind of, so like water doesn't like adhesive into it and make you want to fall.
Wow,
It was crazy. Like I was amazed.
that is so cool.
Traction strips are important.
They are important. Yeah. So
Mhm.
once you fall down a set of stairs, what the stair is made from becomes really important to you.
Absolutely.
Indeed. I
Yep.
fell one time. I sat on frozen peas for a week. Let me tell you, it hurts your caboose after a while. Okay. Well, I have recorded this this session. And like I said, if any of our sessions are something that you would like to review again based on what we discussed, I can upload it to YouTube and add it for you later. These have been really, really good discussions, guys, with this. I really appreciate this. So your assignments, right now, that first discussion board is what you get for anything that I turn in right now. Then you have, after this week, you'll have that second discussion board and that quiz on chapter 1. And I'll update that little, basically I just want to keep a little active schedule for us to go by of where we should be with our points and due dates.
And that's next week, right?
As you can see here, so this is due on Sunday, this coming Sunday, this one on chapter 1, this quiz. And then I think this one is week 5, I think. That covers chapters 3, 4, and 5. And this is all the summary of the building codes and accessibility codes that we would be going over and looking into. And you have our discussions. Okay, so far so good. Are you getting used to this new standard that we have for all of our Blackboard courses at the college? Like over here on this left menu? Does that help?
Honestly, I don't feel like it changed that much, but I feel like it's a lot helpful compared to what it was.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. A lot of them don't look different, but it's more uniform across all of the classes, which is very helpful. It's not like this class uses these tabs, but then this class uses these tabs, and they use this tab differently than this class does. And this class over here uses this tab differently than these two classes. And now everything's pretty much all the same.
Aren't standards wonderful? I love standards.
Yes.
Standards. I know it's a designer thing. You're going to be like that too. I mean, you just, yeah, you know what it's like. This is the standard. You're only supposed to have 16 to 20 inches from your coffee table to the edge of your sofa for it. You know, so, you can tell your friends that there's a reason you do it this way. Well, very good. I'll share that with our e-learning person that, you know, this uniformity to the initial interface of our Blackboard courses is extremely helpful. You know, my master's, what I'm working on is actually instructional design. and your visual message that you're sending to people in online communication or on presentations like what we do with architecture and design. So how can I optimize what I'm communicating to you? And they have this thing in education, they call it cognitive confusion. And it's what you just said. If everyone's Blackboard course looks different, all of a sudden your brain will have to readjust itself to focus on determining where I need to be and get to in my course versus, oh, well, this course is about codes. I want to start thinking about codes. I want to start thinking about accessibility. So all of a sudden you've taken time away from your brain to work on the content of the subject versus how do I manipulate my way around this course online? So that was the whole goal with the uniformity that that was a good word. Let's make it uniform across the board. So, all right, guys. Well, do you have any questions?
I think I'm good.
You're good. We're all good. Today's Wednesday, so have a great weekend. And then Monday morning is, yeah, it's not the 8th yet. So we meet Monday morning for BIM, and then Wednesday for BIM and codes. Then the following Monday, we will not meet, but we'll meet on Wednesday. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're all good. Okay. Oh, and then we'll, for either the September, you'll check with Meriwether on ASID for the September visit.
Now, do you know what day it would be? So I could kind of like.
Always Wednesday at 12:15.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll get in contact with her and see what she says.
That sounds wonderful. Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to close out, and thank you, Rebecca, for being so understanding. That flips me out back there. Woo! You know.
I know.
Okay, well, have a great weekend, and
You too.
we'll say goodbye. Talk to you later.
Bye.